What numbers do we end up noticing, my friend? Now, it may just be me, but I always find it interesting how it's sometimes the little things that we really notice. Like in a relationship, it's not always the big things that matter, it's all the little details that add up. And sometimes that is when creating a world that it's being consistent on the little things, all the little world building details that really make the story feel more grounded in a sense, rather than just some fantasy or something that someone's coming up with on a whim. So it can be really good to get them right, or at least kind of pay attention to them. And sometimes it can be completely random what sticks out to us, like, for example, numbers. They're kind of no exception to it, but they're just kind of little things that, while we may not really think of it, can have a lot of kind of, I guess, importance in the story for some reason. And maybe that's either because of the meanings of the numbers or our associations with them. Now, again, cultures and so forth throughout history have kind of put different meanings or associations with numbers. But then it's kind of, what do we associate with it? It's kind of our perspective base that we need to really think about. For example, we can think of birth dates because that's generally a personal kind of thing to us, or maybe someone else. So when we see the birth date of someone we recognize in a story, we associate with it or see something close. It's kind of interesting to kind of really think of that because it then becomes a bit more personal in a sense. And the same thing with anniversaries. But then we can also include things like addresses or maybe certain ages where we did something or that were especially important to us in a way, or meaningful, I guess, rather than important. But it's those little things that kind of really make numbers stand out or personal and why we might notice them more than some other numbers. But then there are some numbers that just kind of always appear. Numbers like 1. Now, we may think of 1 as being the loneliest number, but it's also kind of for number 1 being on top of the pyramid or whatever you want to say it is. It's kind of the height and so forth, or there's only one prototype or whatever. It's like, it's just kind of one of the, again, it's singular, it's solo, it's whatever. So it has that distinction there. And then you have a duo where it's not alone anymore, or there's a pairing, there's someone there with them, and so forth. It's stronger than just one, which you can then go on and add in 3 for an even stronger thing. Again, supposedly the triangle is like the strongest shape, or that you can make, or however you want to say it, or like the easiest shape. It doesn't really fold in on itself because all 3 sides are supporting each other. And again, you can pack most things into 3, like game classes, or what else do I want to add in there? But it's like all these different things can easily be grouped into, well, groups of 3 basically. So it's kind of interesting to see how that happens in a sense. And then you have 7 for days of the week, or maybe other things besides that. It kind of has, it just has a nice ring to it, and maybe it's just my favoritism of it, but it's interesting how many times 7 tends to pop up when you really think of it. Or like, is it the seventh son of a seventh son? All those little things are just sort of interesting. But then you have numbers like 12, which can mean completion. It's also just a nice, solid number in a sense. And then you have things like a dozen and so forth, where it just seems to be some standard measurement that generally kind of doesn't always really make sense how we came up with it, but it works. And then you have 13, where it's almost like just adding 1 to a dozen is bad luck in a sense, but it's kind of funny how that is, like how we can have like the 13th member is trouble or whatever, or we tried to hide that there's actually a 13th floor of the building by naming it the 14th, or maybe we refer to it as Baker's dozen instead, and it's just interesting. And then we have dates like 21, where it's kind of one of those things we associate with a coming of age, where we're able to do something we weren't able to do before, or allowed to do something we weren't able to do before. So it's one of those things that ages like 21, 16, 18, whatever, it has meaning to us. And then we have 24, like 24 hours in a day or 24 elders. And it's just one of those things that is really solid and just works in a sense. And then you have the numbers that we just associate with different stories, like 42, for example, and any other kind of numbers and so forth. So every time we see that number, we think of that thing. And again, that it's very popular in line with certain numbers as well, but I won't get into those. And then you have like 365 for 365 days, and it's kind of one of those promises that something is always open and available or whatever. So always there in a sense. So it's just kind of one of those things that stick out to us. And then oftentimes you can just triple a number and it will have some significance. Probably we see this most with the sixes and the sevens, even though those basically have complete opposite meanings and associations. But it's just something we notice and consider and can have different reactions to when we see it. But anyway, that's kind of what my thoughts on this is, and I guess it's kind of a random topic, but why not put some numbers that stick out to you in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it so that others may enjoy as well. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to our channel. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lion's Mane Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons of them. Thank you for listening to our musings. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.